All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking the cannabis plant to get to know its two most famous molecules, THC and CBD. I mean, they're everywhere these days, but the really fascinating story is the science behind what they do and why they're so different.
And just a quick heads up, this explainer is brought to you by marijuana.school.
So, we're going to start with a real head-scratcher, a genuine scientific paradox. How is it possible that two molecules, which are basically chemical twins, can have such wildly different effects on us? It's a question that has kept researchers busy for decades. And here's where you can really see the puzzle in black and white. You've got THC on the left, CBD on the right. Now look at that chemical formula. It's the exact same. 21 carbon atoms, 30 hydrogen atoms, 2 oxygen atoms. And yet, one gets you high and the other one doesn't. A tiny little tweak in how those atoms are arranged changes absolutely everything. So to really get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. We've just touched on the paradox. Next, we'll look at the incredible system in our bodies that they talk to. Then we'll get into specific health benefits, the ideas of synergy and safety, and finally, we'll take a peek at what the future holds. All right, first things first. To really get a handle on THC and CBD, you can't just look at the molecules themselves. You have to understand the system they're designed to interact with inside our own bodies. And that's called the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short, is this massive signaling network that runs throughout your entire body. Honestly, you can think of it as your body's master control system. Its whole job is to maintain balance, what scientists call homeostasis, for all sorts of crucial things like your mood, sleep, hunger, and even how your immune system works. It's always there, working behind the scenes to keep you on an even keel. Now, the easiest way to wrap your head around this is with the classic lock and key analogy. So picture your ECS receptors as a bunch of tiny locks all over your body. THC is like a key that fits one of these locks, the CB1 receptor, perfectly. It slides in, turns, and boom, you get the psychoactive effect. CBD, on the other hand, is totally different. It doesn't really fit that main lock. It's more like a locksmith that comes along and changes the shape of the lock itself. This makes it harder for other keys, including THC, to get in and turn it. And here is the hard science behind that analogy. THC is what's called an orthosteric agonist. Fancy term, but it just means it binds directly to that main spot on the CB1 receptor with a really strong grip, firing it up and causing the high. CBD is a negative allosteric modulator with a very weak grip. It binds to a totally different spot on the receptor, which changes its shape and basically turns down the volume on whatever THC is trying to do. So, long story short, THC turns the key while CBD messes with the lock.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on how they work, let's talk about what they do. We're going to dive into the targeted health benefits, and we're going to focus on the actual solid evidence from medicine.
So first off, why do most people even look for medical cannabis in the first place? Well, this chart says it all, loud and clear. A whopping 64% of patients are using it to manage chronic pain. That makes it by far the #1 reason. But you know, the most rock-solid, scientifically proven benefit, that actually belongs to CBD. The FDA-approved drug Epidiolex, which is just purified CBD, has been an absolute game-changer for people with rare and severe forms of epilepsy. We're talking clinical trials showing a median reduction in monthly seizures of almost 37% to as high as 70%. For these patients and their families, that is nothing short of life-changing. It's really the strongest clinical proof we have for what CBD can do. Okay, let's circle back to pain. The evidence shows that cannabis does help with a specific kind called neuropathic pain. That's pain from nerve damage. But, and this is important, the effect is often described as modest. On a 10-point scale, patients usually report their pain going down by about half a point to 1 full point. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but if you're someone living with that kind of pain day in and day out, that bit of relief can be incredibly meaningful. Now, when we get to mental health, man, this is where THC and CBD are like night and day. CBD is known to be anxiolytic, which is just a fancy way of saying it can reduce anxiety. And there's even research into its potential as an antipsychotic. High THC cannabis, on the other hand, can do the exact opposite. It's famous for causing paranoia in some people, and it's a known risk factor for triggering psychosis in individuals who are already vulnerable. This huge difference goes right back to how they each interact with those locks and keys in our bodies.
But, you know, just looking at these two molecules in isolation, that's really only part of the story. So now we're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture: synergy, safety, and the side effects you really need to be aware of.
This brings us to a really popular idea you've probably heard of called the entourage effect. The theory is pretty simple. The cannabis plant works best when all its parts are together. We're talking about all the hundreds of compounds, not just THC and CBD, but also these aromatic molecules called terpenes and flavonoids. The belief is that they all work together in synergy to create a better therapeutic result than any single one could do by itself. And terpenes are a huge piece of this puzzle. They're what give different cannabis strains their unique smells and flavors. You know, that piney scent, or citrus, or lavender. But they do way more than just smell good. Myrcene, for example, can have a sedative effect and might even help your body absorb THC better. Limonene is linked to boosting your mood, and pinene might actually help cancel out some of THC's negative effects on your memory. So this whole entourage effect makes a really compelling argument for whole plant medicine, right? But it brings up a super critical question. Just because something is natural, does that automatically mean it's safe?
And the answer, to be very clear, is no. Natural is not a synonym for safe, and there are some major safety issues to be aware of. Probably the biggest one with CBD is drug interactions. It can seriously interfere with a key enzyme system in your liver that's responsible for breaking down about a quarter of all prescription drugs. This means CBD can cause other medications like blood thinners or statins to build up in your system to toxic levels. And on top of that, very high doses of CBD have been linked to potential liver damage.
So let's just put the common side effects side by side. With CBD, people might experience things like fatigue or maybe some irritability. With THC, the concerns are generally more immediate: paranoia, anxiety, a rapid heart rate, called tachycardia, and impaired coordination. The bottom line is, both of these compounds have side effect profiles that you have to take seriously.
So, after all that, where does this leave us? Well, for our final section, let's look to the future, because it's being shaped by a regulatory and medical landscape that is changing at lightning speed.
Believe me, the ground is shifting under our feet fast. Back in 2018, the FDA approved the first ever CBD drug. More recently, a huge executive order has kicked off the process to reclassify marijuana at the federal level. That's a massive deal. But at the very same time, new rules are trying to crack down on some of those intoxicating products made from hemp. It's a complex and honestly sometimes contradictory legal world out there right now.
And this is where the really exciting science is headed. We're starting to move past just THC or CBD and into this idea of precision cannabinoid medicine. The goal is to create custom-tailored therapies using very specific ratios of THC to CBD, combined with specific terpene profiles, all designed for one person's unique condition, maybe even their own genetics. Which brings us to our final thought. The likely reclassification of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 is going to unlock a whole new era of research and medical use. But it also raises a huge question. Are we actually ready for this future of personalized cannabinoid medicine? The potential is absolutely massive, but the science, the regulations, and the doctors still have a lot of catching up to do. And that future is arriving a lot faster than we think.